What's up, everybody? Welcome into the FanDuel Sunday Night Fantasy Football Recap. I'm your host, Simon, joined as always by my crew of co-hosts. We've got Jay, John, Luke, and Joey. What's up, guys?
What up?
What's happening? Football, baby. Football is back. I love it.
Was that today?
Yeah,
that was today.
That was today. That's what we've been doing, Joey. Oh, man, this is going to be a long show for you, Joey, if you thought today was Saturday.
I was catching up on House of Dragons all day.
Okay, well, Joey, we'll make sure to have a solid 45 minutes
no spoilers,
to the House of Dragons.
Okay.
But then we're going to have to talk a little bit of football, so just fake it as best you can, okay?
Okay.
We've got Dame in the chat saying, howdy doody. Howdy doody, Dame. Welcome in.
All hail,
you,
Dame Overlord.
Mr. Scamper's in here as well. Yoo-hoo, Mr. Scamp. Albert, hello to you. What's up, Albert? Maria said hello, my friends. And Dame saying what we're all thinking today. Football is my favorite. God, I'm so glad.
Correct.
I spent today just sitting on the couch watching football, completely overreacting to every single thing that happened internally. Like it was a day of happiness, sadness, stress, joy, anger, frustration, and overall.
That's why we love it. I literally didn't sit all day. I stood in my kitchen with my laptop, with the iPad, and then the TV. It's just nothing but football all day long. And ignored my family, didn't pay attention to my children. It was fantastic.
Who needs them?
They'll still be there tomorrow on Monday. Except there's more football tomorrow, so you might have to pick again tomorrow, Jay. We got Marty in here saying, "What's up, FYF?"
Hey,
what's up,
Marty.
DIR Logistics LLC, the full LLC in here. What's up,
My
boys?
buddy
Welcome
Brian.
in.
What up?
Hey, Brian, welcome in. We have had a full day of football so far. 14 games either completed or underway in the fourth quarter on the last 4 of those. And we're going to touch on most of those games and the fantasy impact going into week 2. Before we do that, though, a couple reminders. If you are watching this show, you are probably already on the FanDuel YouTube or Twitch channels. If you're on that Twitch channel, hit the follow button. If you're on YouTube, make sure you like this video and subscribe to FanDuel. We're going to be here every Sunday all season in between those 4 p.m. games and that Sunday night football game, breaking down that day's fantasy for you. And on Thursdays from 5 to 6, we are right here back on this channel doing nothing but playing games. So we play lots of games, takes on popular TV game shows, all related to fantasy football. So make sure you come hang out with us there on Thursdays as well. I think it's time to go ahead and pull up this first game and get into it, guys. We have a lot of games to cover. And the first game I wanted to talk about was the San Francisco 49ers going up against the Chicago Bears in Chicago. The Bears, man, through 3 quarters of this game, it looked kind of like San Francisco was dominating in every single aspect of the game, or at least through the first half. Third quarter is where it started turning around, except on the scoreboard. They weren't scoring the points. Chicago turned it on in the second half, ended up winning this game 19-10 in one hell of a bad weather game. It wasn't your snow game, but by the end of that game, it was pouring rain. It was like they were swimming out there. Like they would hit the ground and the splash would go 7 feet in the air.
It was wild. That looked like a ton of fun to play in, though.
Oh, I was going to say, that would be so much fun. Justin Fields did the slide. Like, it was fantastic. I love it.
I loved the full team slide into the end zone at the end of the game after they won. It was absolutely
that
beautiful.
was awesome.
I'm trying not to take too much from some of the negatives in this game because of the weather, but there are some things we do need to talk about. One, Trey Lance, new starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. after they re-signed Jimmy G to a backup deal, I think every single time he goes out there and doesn't perform well, there's going to be questions. There's going to be questions about, does Jimmy G get the start? Do they put Trey Lance on the bench? Now, after week one, Trey Lance didn't put up an impressive line, 13 for 28, 164 yards, no passing touchdowns, and an interception. Did some work on the ground as well, though. 13 carries for 54 yards, which is what we were expecting from him. How much stock are you guys putting into this? Like, let's call it what it is, a poor performance from Trey Lance going into week 2 in this rain game.
Yeah, I mean, the rushing is exactly what we want to see, right? That amount of rushing from Trey Lance is exactly why you drafted him so highly. 13 attempts for 54 yards. That's great for a rushing quarterback, and it's likely he'll get touchdowns in the future. So I'm not too worried about Lance. Like you said, Simon, it was pouring rain. That was absolutely affecting the gameplay. So just a weird game for this to be like your first as a starter. So I could feel for Trey Lance.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think there was more concerns than just the rain, but I'm with you, Jay. I'm not trying to read too much into this. Jay, do you think we're going to see any Jimmy G anytime soon, or is this still the Trey Lance run quarterback team?
I don't. I think that the 49ers, the main reason they re-signed Jimmy G was to keep him away from Seattle because there's mutual interest there. So I think Trey Lance is going to have a long leash. I've got no concerns whatsoever.
Yeah. On the other side of the ball, let's stick at that quarterback position. Justin Fields, who was one of my favorite guys to draft a little bit later this season. Through the first half, I was really nervous. At the end of the first half, he had less than 20 passing yards, if I'm not mistaken, 19 passing yards in the first half. So when you look at this line and see that he had 121 yards in the game, know that the vast majority of that, over 100 yards of that, came just in the second half today. But what I did see from Justin Fields, him getting out of the pocket, him running a little bit, some of the passes were beautiful. I have high hopes for Justin Fields still this season. It was a rain game, like we talked about, and he put together a pretty good second half with the receiving core that he has. Darnell Mooney didn't do much, and he still put together a decent game, getting some of these other names in this offense involved. Dante Pettis had a touchdown. Byron Pringle was involved. Equanimeous St. Brown as well had a touchdown in this game. So Justin Fields, no concerns from me. Joey, how are you feeling about Justin Fields? Did you see enough to have hope going forward?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff I just kind of want to throw out from this game because of the weather. But from what I saw from Fields today, like with my eyes, I kind of liked. It kind of made me doubt
stuff with your eyes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, instead of looking at a stat sheet, I saw it like on my television screen. That's like that right there. It's like real close to my face right now. I liked what I saw from Fields. He looked a lot more explosive than I thought he was going to. Now you look at the stat sheet, you don't really see that. The 2 touchdowns is nice, but this whole week watching it, it did feel like the first 3 quarters was shake off the rust. Unless your name's Patrick Mahomes, then there's no rust there. But everybody else seemed like they had some rust going on.
I pray to God that that's not rust for Patrick Mahomes. If those 5 touchdowns are rust for Patrick Mahomes, then, man, every single person in the fantasy industry that said it was going to be a down year for him is going to be eating some serious crow if he keeps this up. But we've seen this from Patrick Mahomes before. He can put up 5 touchdown games any given week.
I did think it was cool about Equanimeous St. Brown. I didn't say his name right. It's okay.
Equanimeous.
Him and his brother scored touchdowns pretty much back to back. So Amon-Ra St. Brown had the first one, and then his brother had the next. It was kind of cute.
That was very cute. And just to give some context, Justin Fields had 8 completions on 17 attempts for 121 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Yeah, it was nice to see an offense built around Justin Fields' strengths and not trying to fit, his skill set in an offense designed around Andy Dalton. So it was, like you said, being an ugly rain game, this is definitely encouraging. I'm still high on both of these quarterbacks, but especially Justin Fields after the way that he played in the second half, after struggling in the first.
Yeah, we hit on some of these receiving options. I don't think we need to talk too much more about the receiving options in this game. Darnell Mooney is still likely the one for this team. It was a bad game for him. He wasn't the guy. They spread the ball around a little bit and in a weird passing game for the Bears. The more concerning one for me was Cole Kmet, who ended the game with 0 targets, 0 receptions. Are we sounding the alarm bells on Cole Kmet?
Nah, way too early for any of that.
Absolutely. The one last topic on the Chicago Bears side of the ball here, David Montgomery, I think, was assumed that he was going to be the workhorse running back for this team, possibly with Khalil Herbert working in. But at the end of this game, David Montgomery had 17 carries for 26 yards on an impressive 1.5 yards per carry, while Khalil Herbert had 9 carries for 45 yards and that rushing touchdown on the ground. JL, are we going to see Khalil Herbert take over as the back here? David Montgomery did get more carries. Do you think it's more of a 1A, 1B scenario, a heavily utilized backup, or is Herbert going to steal his job?
I don't think it's as extreme as stealing his job. Herbert didn't even get most of the carries. He barely got half of David Montgomery's attempts in this game. This is just one game. It's just one game. It's a very weird game. I'm not extrapolating out of this. David Montgomery is still the guy there. We're going to see Khalil Herbert get worked into this offense. Guys, we got to remember, this is actual NFL football, and so they're never going to use just one guy unless your name's like Todd Gurley or Najee Harris. They're going to mix in these other guys. Khalil Herbert is talented. He's good. I think they'll work him in more and more throughout the season, but I don't think it'll ever be more than a majority that we get from David Montgomery. Was that Damian Harris?
No, we're not talking David Montgomery here. We are talking David.
We are talking David Montgomery.
We are talking David Montgomery. You got me confused now. So, Joey, how did you feel about Kenyon Drake in this? I'm just kidding. Are you viewing Khalil Herbert as a guy that needs to be on rosters, at least at this point? Like, if he's sitting there on your waiver wire, is he someone that you're trying to pick up?
I would have drafted him, and not because I thought that he would take the job at all, but I think he has standalone value. He had a touchdown in this game, which helps, and this game is an outlier. It's kind of weird. There's a lot of good reports coming out about Herbert from Bears camp this year. So if you have a roster spot on your bench, put him there. See what happens in the next couple of weeks. If Montgomery goes down, he has shown that he can do the work. So I like Herbert if you could get him off your waiver wire.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm in full agreement with you there. He's a guy that's worth picking up, has standalone value, maybe a slightly less valuable like Tony Pollard, a guy that you can start, that is the backup running back. And if the starter goes down, they'll likely have a much bigger workload right there. On the San Francisco 49ers side of the ball, unfortunately, one of the first injuries of the season, Elijah Mitchell looked like he was going to be that lead back in this offense. Like, there's all the talk about it being a committee. He was looking great out there at the beginning of the game. 6 carries, 41 yards, sitting there at 6.8 yards per attempt. And then he went out of the game with a knee injury. I believe we're still waiting to hear how long until he's going to be back on the field. But based on the reports, we're seeing him taking a pretty heavy brace to the team bus on his knee. I would imagine he's at least out next week with the potential for a couple more weeks. After he left the game, we saw Deebo Samuel and Jeff Wilson a little bit more involved in the rushing game. Deebo Samuel, the better of the two, rushing the ball. But Jeff Wilson picked up most of the carries, 9 carries, but for only 22 yards after that. But whenever we look at this 49ers depth chart, the only other running back, like actual running back on this roster besides Jeff Wilson and Elijah Mitchell, is undrafted free agent Jordan Mason. So it's going to be Deebo and Jeff Wilson picking up the slack while Elijah Mitchell's out. Joey, we just talked if Khalil Herbert was worth that waiver wire pickup. Is Jeff Wilson worth the waiver wire pickup if Elijah Mitchell's out?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of people, shouting Jordan Mason. And I think they were looking for that echo of last year's Elijah Mitchell when Mostert went down. And Mason didn't get a carry in the game that I saw. And on the stat sheet shows he didn't get one. But yeah, if Jeff Wilson's available on your waiver wire, you've got to put in some money for him, either fab or I don't think if, the smoke clears from the week and Elijah Mitchell's the biggest injury, that Jeff Wilson's not worth your first waiver wire priority if you do waivers that way.
Absolutely. I think I agree with you. I wasn't inspired by what we did see from him in this game. So you can burn that first waiver priority, but I don't know what the upside is for Jeff Wilson. I don't know if we're going to get big games from him, but he could be the primary ball carrier in this offense. Jay, do you have interest in Jeff Wilson?
I do. Honestly, I'd rather take the shot on Jordan Mason. We've seen Jeff Wilson, and he's fine. I don't think he's got the upside of, what you would hope for when you're burning that high waiver priority or that, huge amount of fab on a player. So granted, give me anybody who's going to get the majority of the carries on San Francisco's team, but I think you're going to see Trey Lance involved even more. I think you're going to see Deebo Samuel involved even more. There was a lot of talk this preseason about Jordan Mason, so he's the one that I'm going to be targeting, and he can likely be had for cheaper than Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, and Albert in here asking if Jeff Wilson would be the pickup with Mitchell's injury. Sounds like Joey's maybe a little bit more on the Jeff Wilson side, Jay on the Jordan Mason side. I'm siding with Joey more on this one. JL, if you were picking up one of these two guys, would it be Jeff Wilson or the rookie Jordan Mason?
Yeah, for me, it would be Jeff Wilson. He seems to me to be the clear guy to fill in for that role, so I'll go with him.
There we go. We're going to move on to our next game. This was a fun game down in Miami. The Patriots taking on the Dolphins, and the Dolphins coming out victorious in this one.
Did you pull it up there?
There
All
it
right.
is.
Yep. So, yeah, Dolphins won today. Mac Jones had an interception, lost fumble, and a touchdown to pair with his 213 passing yards. He kind of looked unremarkable for most of the day. Simon, do you have any concerns in like maybe 2 quarterback leagues with Mac Jones?
No, in a 2 quarterback league, I mean, yeah, he was unremarkable, but he still threw for over 200 yards, had a touchdown. It was the week 1 of the season, some new receivers in that offense. This is Mac Jones. Know what I mean? Like maybe take the interception away, take the fumble away. You're a little bit happier with this output, but I'm not too concerned about Mac Jones. He doesn't have the upside that some of these other quarterbacks have, but this is about his floor, I feel like.
Okay. Yeah, it was over 100 degrees on the field, they were saying at game time. So I was wondering if the heat had anything to do with it. The running game turned out to be like a 2-headed monster, as expected, with Damian Harris getting 9 carries and Ramondre Stevenson getting 8. Passing downs work seemed to favor Ty Montgomery, who scored the lone receiving touchdown for the Patriots on a 6-yard reception.
That he log rolled into the end zone for that touchdown.
He rolled in the end zone like I used to roll in the snow when I lived in Montana.
He just like realized he wasn't quite there. Seemed like he tucked and was like, I can get there.
Yeah. Jay, do you like any one of these running backs over the other?
I like both Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, and basically you're going to be hoping that one of them gets a touchdown. I think they're flex plays, they're solid RB2s in bye weeks, but Ty Montgomery, you do have to be a little concerned for Ramondre Stevenson, because that was the role many expected Stevenson to have that pass catching back role in this offense. I still like them both. Ty Montgomery, I mean, he only had 4 targets, so it wasn't like it was anything, absolutely insane. It's encouraging to see Damian Harris get 3 targets. I still, in this backfield, it goes Harris, Stevenson, Ty Montgomery for me. If Montgomery misses time, then I think you can elevate both Harris and Stevenson into RB2 territory.
Cool. JL, what do you think?
I completely agree. I think this is how we imagined it playing out. It's why Damian Harris is going right next to Ramondre Stevenson in drafts. This 9-8 split in attempts is kind of what I was expecting.
Excellent. Jacoby Myers seemed to be the only receiver worth rostering for the Patriots right now. He led the team interceptions and receiving yardage. And did Hunter Henry even get anything? He got 2 for 20. Yeah, I was watching for Hunter Henry all day.
Targets,
Really nothing. Simon, is there anybody on the New England receiving core that you like at all?
I'm not giving up on Devontae Parker yet. Mac Jones, I know he didn't get very many targets, but he looked his way a couple of times. One of them in the end zone, I believe, and it was a decent ball his way. Like I think we could see some noise from Devontae Parker as the season goes down. But you're right, Jacoby Myers is the guy to roster if you're going to start one of these New England wide receivers. But I don't mind holding on to Parker and seeing if that chemistry develops a little bit more as the season progresses.
Cool. Yeah. So on the Miami side, it seemed like it was just like a tale of the first half. Like they scored 17 and that's all they needed for the rest of the game really to win. I would say Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle looked electric together.
It was
great.
God, that was so much fun.
I mean, Hill had 8 for 94 and then Waddle had the touchdown, and that touchdown was beautiful. It was the first play of the morning where I yelped out loud and my wife had to run in here and check to see if something had happened, fallen out of the chair or something. Jay, do you think that after just one game that Hill and Waddle might be one of the best tandems in the league?
I think they're definitely in the conversation, but I still have to give it to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. This is pretty much what I expected Tyreek Hill and both Jalen Waddle to be low-end wide receiver ones. I think there's definitely a very real possibility they can both finish as wide receiver ones on the season. It's got to be encouraging to see Tua, even though he only had 1 touchdown, he looked good out there. I really liked what Mike McDaniels did with this offense. I think he could depend on both Hill and Waddle week in and week out.
Awesome. JL, Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm with you, Jay. I like these guys. This offense looked like it's gonna run through those two players for the majority of the season, and Tua looked like he's gonna be able to support both of them. Like he's gonna be able to support two top tier fantasy relevant wide receivers in this offense if it keeps clicking like it did today. And man, just how much fun is it going to be to cheer for this team all year? Like you mentioned, like they looked electric out there. When Waddle scored that touchdown, yes, I love his Waddle celebration, but I think maybe the thing I love more is when they cut to like the out of shape fans in the stands. Like not
every single one of them were out
there.
Yeah,
they've got 40 fans in the stand in the jerseys just doing the Waddle, like
amazing.
All age ranges, all different kinds of people. They got kids, they got adults, they got old guys, young guys, everyone's waddling.
It's so much fun.
So for myself, I would still rather have Tyreek Hill over Waddle, but is anybody like on the Waddle train big time?
I have a lot of Waddle this season because he was cheaper. Okay. I feel like it was a kind of like the situation last year with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. You know, you really got a value on Higgins last year because everybody expected Jamar Chase to take everything. And that was similar to what I saw with Jalen Waddle. I feel like he was going too far in drafts. So I'm excited for the Jalen Waddle shares that I do have.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jay.
Cool. So as far as rushing for Miami, it was kind of non-existent other than Chase Edmonds. He had 10.5 PPR fantasy points. I know that Raheem Mostert was kind of a popular last guy in a last round. Jay, if you have Mostert, are you happy to drop him at this point?
I wouldn't drop him if you have to, like I'm not concerned with dropping him, but I still think he's worth hanging on to, especially Chase Edmonds, didn't really do anything to inspire any confidence. 2.1 yards per carry. So we've seen Mostert when he's able to stay on the field produce. So give me the guy who could wind up being the leader in rushing attempts in a Mike McDaniel's offense. If you have to, it's fine, but I would prefer to hang on to Mostert.
Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, just to give some context here, we saw Chase Edmonds get 12 attempts for 25 yards. We saw Mostert get 5 attempts for 16 yards total. There were no rushing touchdowns in this game. There were absolutely no rushing touchdowns. Between those two guys, Chase Edmonds is clearly the guy. But 5 attempts is not nothing for Raheem Mostert.
No.
I don't know that I would necessarily drop him unless there's someone more enticing, but I'm okay dropping him. He's the clear number 2 in this offense, which I think is going to end up being a very pass-heavy offense.
Would you drop him for Jeff Wilson?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, I think I would as well. I'd be, if that's the last player on my bench, just in a vacuum, you say, who would you rather have in your lineup right now? It's Jeff Wilson. I'm with you, JL.
Simon, do you think that maybe today was maybe an audition for Edmonds and Mostert, and maybe next week we might actually see Myles Gaskin pop back in here a little bit?
I don't know. I'm not sure if we see Myles Gaskin pop back into this offense. I think Edmonds has a clear hold on the lead back here. I think he's the best running back on the Miami Dolphins, and we'll see him continue to be the feature back. And I see Albert in here asking thoughts on Edmonds. Well, them's my thoughts on Edmonds right there.
Them's my thoughts.
Them's my thoughts.
So Tua had a pretty efficient day with 270 yards, just 1 touchdown. So, I mean, the stat line doesn't look super great, but does anybody have any concerns about Tua if you drafted him to be the starter on your team? Or did today give you more confidence?
Not at all.
Definitely encouraging.
Today.
Yeah. I wouldn't say, it's one game. We've seen Tua put together good games. I want to see him do it in stretches. So I want to see him continue to build on this. Like it's definitely, a lot better than seeing him go out there and, crap the bed, but it's exciting to see him do this in a brand new offense.
Awesome.
Going against the Patriots, the Patriots defense has not been easy lately. So, and Bill Belichick knows what he's doing. So I think that, I think we should give Tua another couple weeks. We should see what he can do. But I feel very encouraged after watching this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me put those concerns to rest, Joe. You don't need to give him another couple weeks. He's the real deal. With Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill there, this was just the appetizer to start the Tua coming out season. Yeah, this was just a little Tua appetizer. The Appa-Tua, sir.
There it is.
Sir.
Nailed it.
Stuck the
Absolutely nailed it.
Awesome. So what's the next game, Simon?
The next game, we're going to keep on talking on this one for a minute. I'm just kidding. I saw Craig in here say, I'm sure I missed the discussion on it, but glad to see Simon made it. Wasn't sure he could bear it after today. Craig, we did discuss the Bears 49ers game, and man, I said Darnell Mooney's name very few times during that stretch. I just couldn't bear to talk about it very much. It was a rough game for Darnell Mooney, but we will see plenty more of him as the season goes on. The next game we're talking about, we've got the Ravens at the Jets. The Ravens were 6.5-point favorites, and they looked like it out there on the field as well. The Ravens coming away with the victory over the Jets. Final score 24-9.
Yes, this was a pretty fun game. I think for anybody who had fantasy players in this game on either side was tuning in, because it was very interesting. We had the Ravens beat the Jets 24-9. Really, the Jets weren't able. As this game started out, it was raining, and the Jets just weren't able to really piece it together. Joe Flacco, he looked all right, but he was not good enough to make things happen. 37 completions on 59 attempts, 307 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception for old Joey Flacco. How are you guys feeling about Joe Flacco as the QB1 there on the Jets, at least for the next 3 weeks? What do you think, Joe? Or Simon?
Yeah, I was very excited. No, I'm not going to say very excited. That's an overstatement.
Very excited for Joe Flacco.
I was interested to see what Joe Flacco was going to do today because of what him and Elijah Moore did last year. Now, I don't mind Elijah Moore's stat line, 5 for 49, but, I didn't see much from Flacco today that inspired me very much. So get back soon, Zach Wilson.
The one thing I did see that I liked that he, I'm sorry, Simon, I'll go ahead and jump ahead of you. He threw the ball 59 times. So granted, he didn't look that great, but he still wound up with over 300 yards. Breece Hall had 10 targets. Michael Carter had 9 targets. Elijah Moore, 7 targets. Garrett Wilson, 8 targets. So you have to be excited for the Jets pass catchers simply from a volume standpoint while Joe Flacco was under center. I don't want to start Joe Flacco under any circumstances, but if he's going to continue to chuck the ball, I'll love it for anybody who's catching the ball on the Jets.
Yeah, 15.3 fantasy points is what Joe Flacco ended this week with.
That was the hardest earned 15-point
fantasy
points by
59 attempts,
ever.
59 attempts, 307 yards.
Ass off for those 15 points.
He absolutely did. This running back horror was also a hot topic this coming into this week. We got the hyped rookie Breece Hall.
Oh, so hot right now.
Coming into this backfield along with Michael Carter, who was pretty hyped. He's pretty hyped as well. Coming, before they drafted Breece Hall. In this game, we saw Michael Carter get 10 of the attempts, 10 attempts for 60 yards, no touchdowns. Breece Hall got 6 attempts for 23 yards and no touchdowns. They had, Michael Carter had 9 targets. So 9 targets, 7 receptions for 40 yards, while Breece Hall had 10 targets for 6 receptions and 38 yards. These guys were pretty evenly used in this game, slightly more on the Michael Carter side.
Mm-hmm.
I can say at least from my perspective, it felt like every single play it was Michael Carter. How are you guys feeling about this backfield? How are you feeling about Breece Hall after watching game 1, with both of these guys in the backfield healthy and playing?
Man, this is going to be one of those ones where, depending on who you ask, you're going to get a wildly different answer. If you drafted Breece Hall, you are terrified right now. And if you drafted Michael Carter, you could not be happier. But I think the reaction should probably be similar for both of them. This is a rookie running back in his first game going up against the Baltimore Ravens defense, okay? The fact that they got even carries in game 1, week 1 against the Ravens leads me to think that by midseason, we're going to see Breece Hall leading this backfield as long as he doesn't choke it away. Michael Carter has the reps with this team, has the trust of the coaching staff, looked good last year. Breece Hall, he's been there, for a couple months now, and he's already sharing equal duties with Michael Carter. I think this will be primarily the Breece down backfield by halfway through the season, but they're ramping him up, and they've got a back that they can trust in Michael Carter and keep using. So why not? While Breece Hall gets used to the speed of the NFL.
He did fumble. I forgot to mention that. Breece Hall did fumble and lost the fumble in this game, which could have affected how he was 100%. Used as well. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah,
what do you think, Jay?
I'm glad you brought that up. That was something I was going to get to, which is encouraging. He fumbled. It was in the red zone as well, and they didn't hesitate. He got back in the game. He got targets. He got usage. So that's
didn't
definitely
get the James Cook treatment.
Right. Yeah. That I'm so glad that they're not pulling that crap with the rookie running back. It's the NFL. Guys are going to fumble now. If he continues, that's a different story. But it was definitely encouraging to see the usage after the fumble continue like it didn't happen.
Absolutely. Joey, anything to add on that running back backfield?
No, I think they hit it pretty much. I mean, Michael Carter, he definitely earned some respect last year, and he earned some work in this backfield. So, I drafted a lot of Breece Hall, but I drafted him with the expectation he probably wasn't going to have a big week 1 or week 2. It's going to be like a sliding scale. As the season goes on, you'll see Breece get more work. But Carter's not bad, and he showed it today. I mean, with his stat line, you can see it.
You could see it. He looked good on the field. Yeah, he absolutely looked good on the field. On the wide receiver front, we also had a surprise. The highest scoring Jets wide receiver in this game was Corey MF Davis. Just like you guys drew it up, right?
That's his legal middle name,
Exactly.
too.
He heard
his
me.
legal.
Somebody asked me, what do you think about Corey Davis on a show this week? Like deep sleeper.
You
and
said it.
I was like, get out of here. Like no way. Like Corey Davis with Elijah Moore. And then they've got rookie Garrett Wilson coming in here. I was like, forget about it. And Joe, you did keep me on. You were like, Corey Davis has been good in the NFL before. Like we've seen it from him. And I said, yeah, but and,
that is exactly what you said.
I was a little bit wrong.
Yeah, Corey Davis got 10.7 fantasy points, PPR fantasy points in this game. And that was on 6 receptions on 9 targets for 77 yards, no touchdowns. While Elijah Moore, he had 7 targets, 5 receptions for 49 yards, no touchdowns. Garrett Wilson, 8 targets and 4 receptions, 52 yards, no touchdowns. So it's pretty spread out. 7, 8, 9. That's pretty even. That's pretty even. Do you guys think that? What do you got? Well, all of these guys. If Corey Davis was the highest scoring one, 10.7 PPR fantasy points. That's not necessarily great. That's kind of just passable for fantasy. Are you guys worried at all going forward that these Jets wide receivers are not really going to be able to return the value on their draft cost because they're in this Jets offense? Or was this a deep, tough matchup with the Ravens?
I think it's both. I mean, the Ravens, pass defense is really good. And I don't think I was spending more than a 6th round pick on any of the Jets wide receivers. Elijah Moore was the first one I was taking this season. So I think if you got him late. And if they're giving you in a half PPR league, Corey Davis, you got Corey Davis late. If you get 10.7 points out of Corey Davis in a flex spot in a bye week, that's fantastic. Now I know this is week 1 and you start your studs, but I'm okay with what I got from them because I wasn't expecting a whole lot.
Sometimes you get Chris Godwin and Alan Lazard week 1 matchup, and you're not sure if Chris Godwin's going to play, and you still have to throw in one of these guys in your flex. So I'm sure there's somebody out there who threw Corey Davis in. But Joey, you I'm in a bit of agreement here with you. Now, the other thing we do have to consider is that this is with Joe Flacco, and we're likely not going to have Joe Flacco all season. This is a different offense. So all this talk
is that a plus or a negative?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a plus or a negative. I don't know. I can't imagine they're going to have Zach Wilson chucking the ball 59 times in this offense. I just don't believe it. Maybe they will, but we haven't seen that from him really. So maybe a negative for the receiving options as a whole, but maybe a positive for an individual one. Maybe that chemistry with Elijah Moore and Zach Wilson's a little better. But yeah, this is the Joe Flacco. This is probably close to what we're going to see. The ball spread around between these receivers. But Joey, exactly what you said. If you drafted Corey Davis, no need to worry at all. You're thrilled. If you drafted Elijah Moore, it's a little disappointing if this is what you're going to get week in, week out. But who was the one touchdown catch this week? It was
Tyler Conklin.
Tyler Conklin. Those touchdowns are going to go to some of the receivers. Just
4 receptions on 7 targets, 14 yards, and 1 touchdown for Tyler Conklin. 9.4 PPR fantasy points. Are you guys picking up Tyler Conklin this week?
No. Shove him in the tight end glob.
And if somebody's in the glob, I'm glad you brought that back. If anybody is disappointed in Elijah Moore and ready to cut bait, pick him up, trade for him. If somebody drops him in shallow bench leagues, I am still very high on Elijah Moore for the season.
All right, switching to the other side of this game, the other team, we got Lamar Jackson threw for 17 completions on 30 attempts. Oh man, that's 30 seems so low after looking at Flacco's 59 attempts. Yeah. He threw for 213 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He had 21.2 fantasy points this week. And man, Devin Duvernay ended up being that guy in Baltimore. 4 receptions for 4 targets, 54 yards, and 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns. How are you guys feeling about Lamar Jackson coming back after a sort of mixed season last year? A lot of people I know were hesitant with Lamar Jackson in this offense. What were your guys' impressions seeing him for the first time this year?
He's that dude.
He looked phenomenal.
Yeah.
He's
Go
the
ahead,
guy that
Tom.
we think he is, and he's going to secure that bag as long as he doesn't get injured this year. Like I am all about. I love the risk he's taking on himself. Like I get it. Maybe it's not the smart money move, but he knows he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And this was a good start to that campaign this year. It was a good start to show him that he deserves that money, whatever he wants in that contract, and I think he's going to get it. I like just watching this game. This is a dude on a mission. I think he's going to get it.
Lamar Jackson became, and I liked him before, but he really did become one of my favorite players kind of overnight when he didn't get his contract and he showed up and he's like, look what I can do. And he showed it today big time. I might buy a Lamar Jackson jersey. I mean, two of us on the show already have one in some fashion. I think Simon, I need to get on board. We need to get some Lamar
I have
Jackson
one too.
jerseys.
Not only the framed one, I have one.
I know,
just
that's what
like
I said.
that,
Two people.
So, yeah.
Oh,
Absolutely.
nice.
The one thing I will say, there's some rumors that he might run a little less because of having the betting on himself and having a contract coming up after this. I don't buy that. I think the reason he didn't run much in this game is because he didn't have to. The game
6
was
attempts on 17 yards was his entire rushing.
Right.
Rushing this game.
The Ravens had this game in hand the entire time. He's one of the smartest guys out there when it comes to taking hits. There's no concern for me when it comes to his rushing upside.
So when we say 17 yards, like it wasn't a lot. Well, when we look at the entire Ravens rushing attack, it was almost 30% of their team's rushing yards, even with it only being 17.
That's a good point. 63 total rushing yards for this offense.
Mike
J.K.
Davis,
Dobbins, please come back, please.
Mike Davis showed last year what he was. The 2 years ago in Carolina was a fluke. People were holding on to him and drafting him late this year in case J.K. Dobbins didn't start. They signed Kenyon Drake off the street, a week or so ago, and he got the most carries. If you're holding out any hope for Mike Davis, stop. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I was wrong. on this. I thought Mike Davis would be the featured back in this offense. He wasn't. 2 attempts for 11 yards, no touchdowns. Kenyon Drake had 11 attempts for 31 yards. Still no touchdowns.
Hillgrove High School represent.
Hillgrove High School. He was clearly the guy. He was clearly the guy in this backfield. So, if J.K. Dobbins is out another week, pick up Kenyon Drake if he's available. I imagine that he's going to be a major waiver wire target for a lot of people this week.
Yeah, if he wasn't already drafted, people will be picking up Kenyon Drake. I agree. Though I was surprised not to see him more involved in the receiving game because we know that's a skill set that he has as well. It was one of his probably biggest pluses whenever he was coming into the league is that he was skilled as a receiver, and we didn't really see that. Just one target in this game, but we'll see next week.
Yeah,
maybe Devin Duvernay can't soak up as many targets going into next week. All 4 of them.
By the way, do not go chase Devin Duvernay's points. He does this. I would not go and go spend a bunch of fab on him this week on Tuesday. If for some reason he becomes the consistent wide receiver 3, by all means pick him up. That is not this week. We do not know that.
Yeah. Devin Duvernay was my best ball darling earlier this spring. I'm not even going to say summer. And I was taking him everywhere in best ball. And then I started really watching James Prochet, and I was like, okay, it's not going to be Duvernay, it's going to be Prochet. And
they're both good.
They both good.
They both do the same thing, and it's the worst in fantasy. It's just it won't be anything.
Devin Duvernay is the guy that if a draft reached if I was in a deep league draft and we reached around 18, 19, I'd go, I don't know. I'll take Duvernay. Know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've seen him do some exciting stuff on a football field. I'll draft him, but
100%.
I'm never going to start him in the right weeks. It just won't happen.
Yeah.
We are going to move on to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
One more thing before we move on. I just wanted to. So I saw a lot of people disappointed with Mark Andrews' performance today, but he led the team in targets. He still got double-digit points. That's exactly what you drafted him for. That's why you draft a guy like that as your tight end. If he would have caught one of those touchdowns, nobody would be saying anything about him. Don't worry about Mark Andrews at all.
The next game we're going to be talking about, we've got the Cleveland Browns, Carolina Panthers game. The Browns came out on top in a close one, 26-24.
Yeah, on the Panthers side of the ball, Baker Mayfield did not look good. Granted, the first half was definitely ugly, and then he played a little better as the game went on, and it's kind of what I expected from Baker Mayfield. He got traded to the Panthers later in the offseason, and then for the majority of training camp, he was splitting reps with the ones. With Sam Darnold. Now, Baker's at least going to be the starter for the first 4 weeks because Sam Darnold's on the pup, so it's going to be a few weeks before we start talking about a potential QB shakeup in Carolina. Christian McCaffrey didn't really do much of anything either. He did get a touchdown, but only 33 yards on 10 carries, not what you're expecting when you draft a Christian McCaffrey early in. I mean, he was a top 3 pick in most drafts. He did have 4 targets, 4 catches. What was it? 24 receiving yards. Simon, we'll start with you. I know you've been a big CMC fan for a long time. You have any concern for him long-term?
Long-term, no, but I mean, this isn't the CMC usage that we're used to seeing. Maybe this is indicative of the fact that he's not quite as healthy as we thought he was going into the season. Maybe they're still a little bit concerned about his injury, or the more concerning option is that they want to keep him healthy, and so that his usage is going to be a lot more limited this year. But I think what this game is showing is this Panthers team needs Christian McCaffrey in order for this offense to run effectively. Like they need Christian McCaffrey heavily involved because they didn't look good for the vast majority of this game. I'm expecting Christian McCaffrey to get a lot more involved in this offense going forward if the Panthers want any chance at pulling out a couple W's this season. So yes, you're disappointed. No, don't panic. It's still Christian McCaffrey. He still led the team in carries by a long shot. And he still got targeted in the receiving game. It's going to be okay. And he got you that touchdown. So disappointing, but fine. Totally fine.
Absolutely. Yeah, and speaking of the receiving game, DJ Moore took a backseat to Robbie Anderson, the guy who was trashing Baker Mayfield all offseason. But DJ Moore had 6 targets, 3 catches, 43 yards. Not what you were hoping to see, Joey. He did not double his FanDuel stat line like you projected earlier in the day. But Robbie Anderson, 8 targets, 5 receptions, 102 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Joey, we'll start with you on this. Is there any concern for DJ Moore with Baker Mayfield, and is Robbie Anderson going to be a thing?
I think yes, and wait, I'm not going to say yes and yes. I think that both of them can have a role in this team. Robbie Anderson, he had a bad year last year. He didn't catch a lot of passes that were thrown his way, but it could have been who was throwing them. So, but I like DJ Moore still. I mean, he's still a top 15 wide receiver for me. And yeah, he did not double his yardage like I said he was going to today. But did he cover what was the original? No, it was 62. He didn't even do that. So don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, and the Browns secondary is a great secondary unit. Know what I mean? This isn't like
your entire defense is great.
It's a great defense. It's one of the elite secondary units, top tier defense. Like DJ Moore's gonna be fine. And I'm thinking this was a Robbie Anderson strategy. He knows the kind of player Baker is. Baker loves to prove people wrong. Know what I mean? Like that's his whole MO. He's like, oh, I'm going to prove him wrong. And Robbie was sort of like, oh, I know how to get more targets this year. Like I know how to be the wide receiver one. I'm going to go out there and tell him that he's bad. Like I'm going to just crap talk him. And then Baker comes out and he's like, oh yeah, Robbie, I'll show you. Watch how good you are with me at quarterback. We might see
this football over the mountains. No, like you guys said, Cleveland does have a fantastic defense, and I'm still somewhat optimistic about the Panthers' offense because Cleveland did exactly what everybody expected them to do. They ran the ball 39 times. They played possession. They tried to hide Jacoby Brissett. I still think Baker Mayfield can be a serviceable QB3/bye week super flex fill-in. So I think better days are ahead for the Panthers. Now, on the other side of the ball, like I said, Jacoby Brissett looked pretty much how we expected him to look. It was ugly. He threw some ducks out there, man. Like I think my son threw the ball in the house harder than Jacoby Brissett was throwing it on the field. It was just
your son's got an arm.
He does. He can definitely throw the football over them mountains. He's nothing more than a game manager. Pretty much exactly what we expected. Under 150 passing yards. One thing that was definitely positive for the Browns was Kareem Hunt. He got usage in both the passing game and the rushing game. 11 carries for 46 yards and a rushing touchdown. 4 receptions on 4 targets, 24 yards, and a receiving touchdown. JL, is Kareem Hunt an every week starter from here on out?
No, absolutely not. I mean, we've seen this year after year in that Cleveland Browns offense. They're going to use Kareem Hunt on some games. They're going to use Nick Chubb on other games. Kareem Hunt is going to yield more value than you probably expect in fantasy, and not enough to really put him in that category where it matters that much. So I think we're going to get what we've gotten. From what I saw today, the Browns are not shifting their running back strategy at all. They're keeping it the same.
I tend to disagree a little bit. I do think Kareem Hunt is a guy that, like, maybe not someone that you're forcing into your lineup every week, but I'd be fully comfortable putting Kareem Hunt in that flex, seeing that they were using both guys. Like, it's not like Nick Chubb wasn't used in this game. 22 carries, 141 yards on the ground. Kareem Hunt got the touchdowns, but you take away those touchdowns, you're still happy with him in the flex. We're talking, what is that? Almost 10 points. Like, if you throw him in the flex without either touchdown in a PPR league, that's a serviceable flex running back. And I think you're going to see him similarly involved down like throughout the rest of the season. So not a high upside guy, but a high upside guy, but someone who's got a decent floor in this offense as well.
You literally agreed with everything I said. I don't know why you said you tend to disagree.
Because you said absolutely not is he an every week starter. And I think absolutely he
every week starter I view as someone that you're starting every week. You have to start every week. I don't think you need to start Kareem Hunt by any means.
Gotcha.
But
well, let's fight over semantics for the next 10 minutes if you want to.
Yeah. It's pronounced semantics, actually.
No, it's Simon Ticks.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, and Nick Chubb looked great on the ground. He did what he always does. 141 yards, 6.4 yards per carry. He only had one target. That's the one thing why I kind of personally faded Nick Chubb this year, where he was going. I love him. I think you hear everybody say it on every show, every station. He is one of the, if not the best pure runner in the entire NFL, but he doesn't get the receptions, and Kareem Hunt was getting the work in the red zone. So I see Nick Chubb as a high-end RB2 versus an RB1. I think with Kareem Hunt on the field, it really caps his upside. Joey, what you think?
Absolutely, yeah. Kareem Hunt has always been for me like the lottery ticket. If Chubb goes down, Hunt's an RB1. But why Hunt's on the field at the same token, Chubb he can be an RB1, but he can't be that elite RB1 at the top. Even with 141 rushing yards, he needs that touchdown if he wants it.
Touchdowns or receiving work, he's not getting either.
Yeah.
Really.
So
yeah. He's got probably the safest floor out of just about any of the running backs, but his upside is capped with Kareem Hunt on the field, like I was saying. And the pass catchers for Cleveland left a lot to be desired. Donovan Peoples-Jones led the team in targets with 11, 6 catches, 60 yards. Not much to get excited about. Kareem Hunt caught the only receiving touchdown. Simon, your boy, Amari Cooper, it was ugly. 6 targets, 3 receptions for 17 total yards. What are you doing with Amari Cooper?
Nothing, because I don't have him on a single fantasy team this year because this Cleveland Browns offense looks exactly like I thought it was going to look like. It is a rush-heavy, two-headed monster with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. That's how they want to run this offense, especially with Jacoby Brissett for the first 11 weeks. So you're probably going to get a lot more games like this. I don't expect Donovan Peoples-Jones to be the most heavily targeted player week in, week out. It'll probably be Amari Cooper as the most targeted player. And, maybe he comes down with the receiving touchdown and you get a good week out of him. But games like this are going to happen very frequently for these Cleveland wide receivers because if they can win on the ground, they're going to do it. That's how they're going to play the game. That's their preferred method of play, and they can succeed with the lineup that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on that.
The next game we're going to talk about, guys, we have the Philadelphia Eagles Detroit Lions game. And this, oh my God, 38-35 final score. The Eagles pulling away with the victory at the end. Just insane. I didn't expect, over 70 points to be scored in this game, 73 points between the two offenses. The first thing I wanted to touch on, last year, I feel like we knew that this Philadelphia team was great at rushing the ball. We knew they had multiple people that could rush the ball, and they liked spreading the ball around to different ball carriers. Well, just look at this box score. 4 rushing touchdowns, 4 different people punching one in. Miles Sanders, with the most carries of any running back on the team, 13 carries, 96 yards, and grabbing that touchdown. But Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott both punched one in as well this week. But Jalen Hurts was the leading rusher. Jay, what are we doing with this backfield? Do you trust Miles Sanders? He did get the most carries here.
I am a known Miles Sanders truther in the past. You can't trust him. You've seen this before. When he gets the carries, he looks great. 7.4 yards per carry. He was finally able to get in the end zone. But, he got 1 touchdown when there were 4 on the ground. He's got, 2 other capable running back mates. He's got Jalen Hurts, who is going to take plenty of red zone looks. I think he's fine. He was basically free in just about every single draft. I think if you drafted him super late, you're happy. I see him more as a flex play versus an RB2. If you're fine throwing him in your flex, I think you're good. But there's going to be days, if he didn't get in the end zone, it would have been ugly because he doesn't really get involved in the passing game a lot. That's pretty much Kenneth Gainwell's role. So he's fine. It's definitely encouraging, but I'm not trusting Miles Sanders whatsoever.
Yeah. Joey, what about you? Do you have more optimism for him, or are you feeling the same way about this Eagles backfield?
So Miles Sanders was a player I drafted as my RB2 and 3 because I did a lot of hero RB this year where I took one RB and then went receiver for a while. So I am going to take Miles Sanders and I'm going to trot him out in all my leagues there tomorrow and try to trade him, honestly, for whatever I can get. If it's
Can you show us what that trot looks like, Joey?
No, not at this moment. When I get like a wider camera, probably, or one that's like this, yeah, then I can. Maybe I'll go on TikTok and do it. No, I'm not gonna do that. So yeah, I'm actually okay with Miles Sanders the next few weeks, but if I can trade him, I really want to.
That's fair. Jalen Hurts was the leading rusher in this game, though, from a carries perspective.
Surprise,
did not lead in yards. 17 carries, 90 yards on the ground. He was 18 for 32 through the air for 243 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. But he did put up 24.72 points on FanDuel today, and that was without a passing touchdown and without going over 250 passing yards, okay? So he was a very good quarterback option. He doesn't even need to throw the ball into the end zone to do that. I'm buying into the Jalen Hurts hype. Know what I mean? He's the dude. He's going to be great for fantasy all season. And this game is showing you why. 90 yards on the ground, a touchdown. You don't even need to throw a touchdown if you're going to be doing stuff like that.
Call it now. He's going to finish as the QB1 on the season. I love what I saw. He was able to, we know what he is on the ground rushing the ball, but 243 passing yards. He's going to get some passing touchdowns in there. A.J. Brown, 13 targets, 10 receptions, 155 yards. A.J. Brown looked absolutely fantastic. He was at his best.
That felt right. After saying it all off season.
When initially the trade initially happened, I was down on A.J. Brown. But as I looked into it, saw the relationship, the talk of Jalen Hurts improving this offseason, I got more and more excited and got A.J. Brown in more places. So like I said, QB1 on the season, Jalen Hurts.
That is bold. I like it, Jay, right there. But with what we saw today, it's definitely in the range of outcomes. Like, he showed us enough today that that's something he can do. That's not an absurd take. And speaking of A.J. Brown, he had 13 targets, by far the most heavily targeted player in this game, a 45% target share in week 1 for A.J. Brown. Like, it wasn't even close. Dude had almost 50% of the targets on this entire team. JL, I do think you've probably been the most consistently high on A.J. Brown throughout this offseason. Is he going to continue to be the one guy here for the Eagles? Like, is this target share sustainable?
Thank you for saying that, Simon. Feels good to finally be recognized for a take.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think he is. I think he's clearly the one. As we see that, the next closest player with like the next closest number of targets on the team was 4. There was 4 targets, was the next highest that we saw outside of A.J. Brown. He had 13 targets. That's fantastic in an offense that doesn't throw a lot. So, we've been talking about this all the last 2 weeks on our morning show. And Coop brought it up. I forget the exact point he brought up, but the point is, if you're on a low volume offense, if you have a player, if you're a fantasy manager, you have a player who's on a low volume offense, if they are the first or second option in that offense, you really don't have to worry too much because they're most likely going to get all of those fantasy points really funneled through them. I think AJ Brown is going to be that guy on this offense. I do think Devonta Smith will come back and have hopefully better games, 0 receptions on 4 targets. Yeah, he did nothing. He did absolutely nothing. That's pretty weird to see. I do think he'll have a bigger role, but I think A.J. Brown is the guy here. I don't think Devonta Smith is going to be able to supplant him.
If you look at my notes for this game, I just have A.J. Brown is that dude. All caps.
I saw that.
Anyone who doubted him, like, God, he just is that dude. Exactly.
When you
who
hit
you think
150 yards, like, you're that dude.
You're that
dude.
dude.
Like, 100 is impressive. 150, God, come
10
on.
catches too. Like, I'll take it all day long.
Yeah,
he did his best.
Is 10 points right there.
That's absolutely beautiful right there. On the other side of the ball, Jared Goff looked like Jared Goff. He had decent numbers through the year, right? But it's Jared Goff. I think it's exactly what I expected from him. Jamal Williams came out with 2 touchdowns on 11 carries for 28 yards, but it's the 2 touchdowns, and that first one on the goal line is the one that scared me a little bit. It was before we saw DeAndre Swift really take off, but then you know what? DeAndre Swift came out and said, don't worry, guys. I got you. 15 carries, 144 yards, a touchdown on the ground as well. DeAndre Swift is what we thought he was in this offense, adding 3 receptions for 31 yards as well. I think Jamal Williams is the guy that we need to talk about, though. He got a little bit of that Hard Knocks bump in ADP towards the end of the season right there, and maybe it was worth it. Maybe it was earned for Jamal Williams. Joey, do you think he has a consistent role in this offense? Obviously not a 2-touchdown game every week, but do you think he's worth having on your roster?
I think he's worth having on the roster, but I will say that those Williams touchdowns seem to come after Swift had a huge run each time. That's when he got on the field. Swift is on the sideline kind of catching his breath. I know for sure on the first one, and that's when Williams ran it in. And I believe on the second one that happened too. So I think DeAndre Swift on the end of the season will have more touchdowns than Jamal Williams, but I don't think Jamal Williams is either a bad backup running back to have on your bench or just a flex when bye weeks come around.
DeAndre Swift had 9.6 yards a carry today.
Sustainable, right? Definitely sustainable.
9.6.
I watched a lot of this game, and Joey, you are right. I know definitely the first one, and I think the second one too. Yeah. But Jamal Williams was in there in the red zone, even when they weren't able to punch it in. He was in there. 6 attempts to DeAndre Swift's 2 attempts in the red zone. Had 1 target compared to none for DeAndre Swift in the red zone. I was very high on DeAndre Swift this offseason. He was one of my guys who I considered a must draft. I will say if this usage continues in the red zone for Jamal Williams, while I still think DeAndre Swift is firmly in RB1 territory, I believe that he had top 5 upside. If Williams is getting those red zone touches, I think his ceiling is capped.
You think DeAndre Swift's ceiling is capped?
If Jamal Williams continues to get the red zone work. Gotcha. I think he got a safe floor. You can't complain. The guy got, over 20 points in 144 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, 3 catches, 31 yards. He had a fantastic game, but, you throw one of those touchdowns from Jamal Williams to DeAndre Swift, then, you're talking a top 3 guy on the day.
I ain't too worried about his upside with 15 attempts for 144 yards. I think that's plenty of upside for Swift.
Yeah, I tend to be more in line with you, Joe. I think DeAndre Swift is the main guy in this offense. It's not a 1A, 1B scenario. It's a lead back and a backup. But this backup is a good running back, so they'll probably get him involved. Mr. Scampers had a really great point here. Crepes. That's a really great point, Mr. Scampers. We did not consider that. I saw Albert had a question for us while we were talking about Miles Sanders and potentially trying to trade him. Albert wanted to know, would you trade Miles Sanders for James Robinson? Joey, what about you?
No, I understand James Robinson had 2 touchdowns today, but I'm holding on to Miles Sanders for James. No, I'm not making that trade.
Me neither.
I would not make that trade either.
Not at all. And then DIR Logistics in here asking you, Jace, are you saying to trade Swift high?
No, not at all. I just I think it's more of my own personal bias where I think DeAndre Swift top 3, potentially RB1 on the season. If Williams continues to get those touchdowns, then that's a little capped.
I get what you're saying. Maria, what's up? Welcome in. Maria said, what did I miss? Only a couple of games.
Jay was wearing a hat and then he took it off.
That is true. And Joey wasn't wearing a shirt, but then he put one on.
Yeah.
So that's what you've missed so far. A couple wardrobe changes on this one. As far as the receivers go for Detroit, I think there was a little bit of a question. We assumed Amon-Ra St. Brown would probably be the lead receiver with rookie Jameson Williams not yet active. But DJ Chark was I don't want to say surprise because he's been getting that camp hype, that preseason hype, but he came out and he showed up. He did what they said he was going to do during this offseason. 8 targets, 4 receptions, 52 yards, and a touchdown. JL, you buying into DJ Chark as the wide receiver 2 here in this Detroit offense?
I hate this. I hate it so much because
you have to.
Coop has been like, oh, DJ Chark. And I don't like DJ Chark. I don't want him to be successful.
What did he do to you?
Ouch.
I just don't want him to be successful. I don't think he is that talented. But yeah, I mean, I think he's the wide receiver 2 on this offense. I think the bar is extremely low. I don't think it takes much to be the wide receiver 2 on the Detroit Lions offense.
Yeah, I think you can start DJ Chark. until Jamison Williams is back. I'm fine plugging him in the flex. Jay, you don't think so? Eight
do you really want
nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, but do you really want the wide receiver 2 on the lines when you also have DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson? Like they're the pretty much the de facto second option in this passing game. So I think in a pinch you could throw him in at flex, but I don't see Jared Goff really supporting, the fourth option in the passing game.
If he's the number 2, yeah, I think you can play him, and I think you should probably roster him. I don't think you're going to get even 13 fantasy points, which is what he got this week. I think Simon said the stat line, but 4 receptions on 8 targets for 52 yards and a touchdown. He's not going to get that touchdown every week. And so I don't think you're going to be able to trust him.
Yeah, I'm with you
but
guys.
Certainly worth rostering.
We're going to move on to our next game. This was another exciting one. We're going from probably the 2 most exciting games on that early slate, the Saints-Falcons game, which was definitely a tale of 2 halves. The Saints coming out on top 27-26 in this one.
Yeah, I'm glad you said a tale of 2 halves because that was going to be my intro to this because it really wasn't a tale of 2 halves. It was a tale of 3 quarters and then a quarter. At about the beginning of the 4th quarter mark, Jameis Winston went into the medical tent, and it might as well have been a phone booth because he came out as Superman. He went insane in the 4th quarter, and that's what Jameis Winston does. He had 2 touchdowns to Michael Thomas in the 4th quarter, leading the drive to end up winning the game. So this season, do you think we see more of the first 3 quarter Jameis or the 4th quarter Jameis?
I think you see the whole game, Jameis. That's pretty much, as a Buccaneers fan, I know better than anybody. That's what Jameis Winston has been his whole career. I think you're going to have the highs. I think you're going to have the lows. And if Michael Thomas is able to stay on the field, I think Jameis is going to be a rock solid QB2 for Superflex leagues.
Yeah. Rock solid.
You'll hear me say that a few more times. That's my go-to line.
As someone that watched Jameis play with the Bucs, interceptions was his big problem. But last year he didn't really have a problem with interceptions, and then he got injured. But in today's game, he didn't have one either. So do you think that's going to be common for him, that he's going to have a lot less picks this year? Or do you think he'll revert back to old Jameis?
I think it's part of the game plan here, right? I don't think we're seeing Jameis Winston chuck the ball around quite as much as we did in Tampa Bay. And I know we meme about LASIK Jameis all the time, right? But, this is another season of evidence. If he continues putting this together, that post-LASIK, I know it was at the same time as he switched teams, but there could be some truth to that affecting his gameplay as well. I'm expecting lower interception totals from him compared to some of those full seasons we saw with the Bucs, but we'll still get some classic Jameis interceptions this season. He is who he is.
Excellent. Yeah. So you'll notice on the stat sheet there, Taysom Hill has 4 carries for 81 yards and a touchdown. Now, that's very frustrating, but I did go around to the different sites and I did check, and Taysom Hill on Yahoo and Sleeper does have tight end eligibility. So, Simon, is Taysom Hill someone that you are thinking of picking up to play as a tight end?
I don't want to play. I don't want to play this stupid Taysom Hill game anymore. Okay, I thought with Sean Payton leaving this team with Taysom Hill's daddy, calling it quits, that we were going to see the end of like the Taysom Hill gadget player all over the field era. But no, they plugged him in at quarterback. They had him running the ball. Like it seems like it's going to just be more Taysom Hill nonsense all season. Yeah. You can play him at tight end. He's a cheat code. If he does end up getting quarterback snaps at tight end, that's absolutely a cheat code. But we probably don't see it every week. We probably don't see him in there every single week getting those snaps. So it's a little bit of a gamble. It's does he get them, and does he do something with them? Because it was limited snaps at quarterback as well. We just got lucky that he ran one of them in for a touchdown if he started them. But man, the volume is not consistent enough. His usage isn't consistent enough. But if you're in a real pinch, yeah, throw him in. He could get a touchdown. He could throw one in or rush one in.
Yeah, that 57-yard run, it did catch the Falcons on the heels. Like I think it caught everyone on their heels watching at home. But it did seem. Playing? What'd you say?
Like, yeah, the Falcons were like, this guy's still playing for the Saints.
Exactly. But he was the top rusher for the Saints on the day. With Alvin Kamara only had 9 carries for 39 yards and 3 receptions for 7 yards. Not a very positive outlook for him. Do you think this is just like a shake the rust off game, Jail?
For who?
Alvin Kamara.
Alvin Kamara, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he had a lot of stuff going on in the offseason. And this game was weird. I don't think anyone expected the Falcons to be able to
No.
hang in this game. And
Scott Fish did.
He did.
He called me out personally about it on
He
the show
did?
earlier in the week. Yeah. He was saying that because I was saying Jameis Winston's going to light up the Falcons the whole game. And Scott Fish was like, nope, their defense is really good. And for 3 quarters, Scott Fish was exactly right.
For 3 exact quarters,
Yeah.
he was exactly right. Absolutely. Yeah, no, Kamara getting the bulk of the attempts here makes me is what I expected. I'm not surprised by that. It's what I expected. But with Mark Ingram there, you could have seen that change. But he got the bulk of the carries in this game. And I think that we'll have better games ahead for fantasy.
Jay, anything to add?
Yeah, I'm the opposite of JL. I am concerned about Alvin Kamara. While he did get the 9 carries and lead the backfield, like you don't draft Alvin Kamara for his usage as a running back. You draft Alvin Kamara for his targets, and he only had 4. Jawan Johnson had more targets than he did. Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave. There's a lot of still by an inch or a mile.
Chris Olave is a wide receiver.
No, I know, but I'm saying that you want more targets for Alvin Kamara for where you drafted him. His thing has never been ground and pound. It's been what he's able to do in the receiving game. So I am a little concerned with the usage. Hopefully it's just one game. I'm not saying it's time to panic or anything like that, but it's concerning to not see him get a high number of targets.
Just look at this game. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that Kamara was used low and that the Saints needed 17 points in the 4th quarter to win this game, right?
But
like
that's a game you would expect him to get a lot of targets if they're down.
Right. And I'm saying he didn't, and it didn't go well. This game did not go well for Alvin Kamara or for the Saints as a whole. They did pull out the W, but this is a game that they were fairly heavily favored in. What was the line on this one? 5.5 points for the Saints at the Falcons, right? So on the road, 5.5 point favorites. Maybe they thought they wouldn't need to use Kamara as much in this game. Like JL mentioned, he had the offseason stuff going on. Like maybe that was part of the game plan, but I think this shows like they need Alvin Kamara. Just like the Panthers need Christian McCaffrey for this offense to function. He's going to get a full workload. I would bet next week we see Alvin Kamara put everyone who's worried, put their minds at ease.
Yeah. As far as the receivers, Jarvis Landry kind of showed out for the whole game. Although Michael Thomas came in the 4th quarter, it's like him and Winston just kind of wanted to go, like, in the 4th quarter, let's go out there, hold hands, and just have fun the rest of the game. Jay, between these 2 receivers, who are you wanting most on your teams this year, Landry or Thomas?
I got to go Michael Thomas. While I wasn't necessarily somebody who bought back in, I think you have to be encouraged, one, by Jameis looked for him in the clutch. And Jarvis Landry in PPR leagues is the guy. He's the safe. He's going to be the safety blanket for Jameis. 7 catches, 114 yards. You love to see it, but I like the big playability of Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I'm hoping Jameis, in the 4th quarter, he found a new toy in Michael Thomas, and that we see more of that. Going to the other side with the Falcons, it really is kind of a 2-headed monster for the Falcons today with Marcus Mariota having 215 yards passing, but then 72 yards rushing with a rushing touchdown. In 2 quarterbacks league, is Marcus Mariota somebody you're wanting to grab if he's not already gone? Gail?
He's got to be already drafted, right?
Not necessarily. More of a QB3 bye-week replacement.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think he's worth. I mean, I just drafted Mariota in a league. I think it was a redraft Superflex league, right? Maybe last week. And so I think Marcus Mariota is going to be able to return fantasy value this season. I think he'll be able to make it happen. I don't think he'll be a top guy, but certainly enough to. I mean, exactly what we saw today. 19.8 fantasy points is fantastic for a guy you probably got in the later rounds.
Absolutely, and you have to be encouraged with the usage too. He had his best seasons with Arthur Smith as his offensive coordinator in Tennessee. So he knows how to use Marcus Mariota, and you saw him used on the ground as well. So it's definitely encouraging.
Yeah. With the Tyler Algier, he was out today. I was pretty encouraged with Cordell Patterson and what he did today. It seemed like other than Mariota, the offense was really running through him. So Simon, are you feeling good throwing him in your lineups going forward?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I felt great throwing him in my lineups this week, and I'm going to feel great about it going forward. Now, we may see what we saw last year. He's an older running back, and if he's going to get 22 carries a week, I just don't think he can maintain that volume and stay healthy for an entire 17-game season. So don't be surprised if we see kind of like a back end of the season tail off like we
saw
did
last year.
like we saw last year with Cordero Patterson. But for now, for these first 7-8 weeks, plug Cordero Patterson in your lineup and just go right ahead. And what's super encouraging is he did a lot of his damage on the ground today, whereas last year he made most of his money through the receiving game last year.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yo, if we can get Cordero Patterson with 100 receiving yards or 100 rushing yards and throw 7 receptions on top of there in future games, like, man, this may be the one that a lot of people are looking back on like, how the hell did we miss on Cordero Patterson again? Like they added Tyler
right now. That's how I feel right now.
Hey, I've been drafting
the whole time. Watching this game today, I was sitting there just going, he's going to do it again. You know, we all got duped again because he's going to go out there and he's going to go be that guy again. Last season, he had 2 games, his highest targeted games throughout the whole season, 16 targets. Today, 20. I'm sorry, not targets, rushing attempts. His highest game last year was with 16 rushing attempts. He got 22 today. 22 today. That's fantastic.
That's crazy. Yeah. Probably the most disappointing thing of the day was Kyle Pitts with 2 receptions, 19 yards. I see this as a major outlier for his season. I know Drake London had a good day in his rookie performance, but I'm hoping Kyle Pitts has a better week next week. Simon, you think it's just to shake the rust off for Kyle Pitts?
It's Kyle Pitts. He's the best player on this team. He'll get his. It's just a bad week for him.
We knew this was going to happen. We knew this was going to happen again with Kyle Pitts because he's not on an offense that's going to funnel the ball to him so much that he is going to be consistent every week in and week out. We were all drafting Kyle Pitts as the guy who's going to have these big plays because the opportunity's there, but there are going to be games that are not going to use him.
Yep. Still tied for the team leading targets with 7 targets. No concern for Kyle Pitts.
No, absolutely. We're going to move on to our next game. We've got Jaguars at Commanders. The Commanders were 3 points favorites in this one, and this was a fairly close game as well, but the Commanders coming out on top.
This game was wild. This to me was probably the most fun game to watch of the day. I just kept coming back to it. The Washington came out to an early lead. They were going into half. It was 14-3. Washington was leading. And then Jacksonville came back, and the Commanders had to fight their way back to win this game. It was fun. It was fun on both sides of the ball. Let's start on the Washington side.
Yes, please.
I knew you'd want to do that.
I think we underestimated as a whole how good this receiving core is for Washington.
Oh my God, yeah.
Holy cow, not just Terry McLaurin, but just as a whole, this receiving core is disgusting. It's beautiful.
Yeah, Jahan Dotson looked fantastic. So starting at the top, Carson Wentz threw 27 completions on 41 attempts, 303 passing yards, and 4 passing touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions, but he finished the week with 29.7 fantasy points, which is very good. Very good for Carson Wentz. Great job. Gold star for him. The receiving. Go ahead.
Carson Wentz, just for some context, was so far, there's still game left to be played, but as far as values go on FanDuel, he returned 4.37x his value today, the highest of any quarterback in the league. The highest scoring quarterback Patrick Mahomes is currently ahead of him. There's a couple guys, but the biggest return on value, though, Patrick Mahomes was trying his best to catch him, even being one of the most expensive quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna have chicken for dinner tonight, but I ate a lot of crow because I was dogging Carson Wentz really bad this morning.
Dogging Carson.
Yeah,
eating crow. We had on the receiving side, we had Jahan Dotson get 5 targets, 3 receptions for 40 yards, and 2 TDs. My God, Jahan Dotson.
Welcome to the NFL.
Look good.
Welcome to the freaking NFL. Curtis Samuel, 11 targets, 8 receptions for 55 yards, and a touchdown. Welcome back to the NFL, Curtis Samuel.
Yes.
Terry McLaurin, he had 4 targets, 2 receptions, 58 yards, and a touchdown. Everybody got a touchdown this game, apparently. Out of these wide receivers, those 3 I just mentioned, Dotson and Samuel are both not top drafted guys, right? You probably got them later on in your drafts. After watching that game today, are you guys moving them up in your rest of season rankings? Samuel and Dotson?
I think you have to. I mean, it depends where you had him, but I do think you had to. I know, especially Curtis Samuel. The 11 targets are hard to ignore. I know the 2 touchdowns for Jahan Dotson is the exciting one, right? But it was off of 5 targets. Yeah, you can't expect 2 touchdowns off of 5 targets. But what I did see from him, there's a reason he got those 2 touchdowns. He looked great out on the field. But Curtis Samuel getting 11 targets is impossible to ignore. It seems like he's going to be a key part of this offense going forward. And he looked good with the targets that he got out there.
Yeah. I was super high on Curtis Samuel last year. And today I was just a year late. That's all it is. I was right. I was just a year late. He looked phenomenal.
A year
early. Yes.
No, Curtis Samuel was a year late is what it was.
That's what I meant.
You were right on time.
I followed you. Exactly. Yeah, I'm moving Curtis Samuel up more than I am Dotson. I love Dotson, but with the talent, we knew this was possible with him, but he only had 5 targets. The 11 targets for Curtis Samuel, plus what he could do out of the backfield. He had 4 carries. He's got those skills like a Deebo Samuel. So we could see a big season from Curtis Samuel, who was practically free.
Practically free. All right, moving on to the other side of this game, the other team, Jacksonville Jaguars. We had Trevor Lawrence, about 24 completions on 42 attempts, 275 yards, and a touchdown, 1 interception. James Robinson, he was in this game. He played this game, guys. 11 attempts, 66 yards, and a touchdown. He was heavily involved. I missed on this one. I didn't think James Robinson would be as heavily involved as he was. Travis Etienne, he had 4 attempts of 47 yards, no rushing touchdowns. And in the receiving game, James Robinson got 2 targets, 1 reception for a touchdown. Etienne got 4 targets for 2 receptions and 18 yards, no touchdowns. What are you guys thinking after watching this first week with Travis Etienne and James Robinson? Is James Robinson going to be a thorn in the side of Etienne managers? Should they adjust how they're planning to use him this season?
Or is Etienne going to be a thorn in the side of Robinson managers?
Maybe.
What it looked like today. I'm not going that far. But I will say James Robinson. I drafted a lot of James Robinson late this year, not because I thought he was going to be the dude. I thought Travis Etienne was. But we've seen James Robinson perform at a high level in the NFL, and it looks like the Jaguars know that. They know he's a good running back, and they're going to continue to use him. We'll probably see, Jail. It's like you said. It's going to be rough for both of these guys, it seems like. They have 2 great running backs in this offense, and they're going to use both of them all season. So James Robinson got the touchdowns today. Easily could go Etienne's way. In another week, he looked great. He looked electric with the ball in his hands on the field. So I'm not too worried about him because, he looked good. James Robinson got the TDs, but he looked great.
He looked so good. And I tweeted this out earlier because I was watching the game and he missed on like 3 or 4 big plays. And it was just narrow miss. Like Trevor Lawrence missed him in the end zone. He overthrew it. It was a bad throw. Nothing Etienne could have done, but it would have been a touchdown for Etienne. There was a couple other plays like that. One was more Etienne's fault. I keep blanking on it right now. But man, when as soon as we start to see that connection, I feel like it's going to be really exciting. I was encouraged from what I saw today, despite James Robinson's use.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at that 11.8 yards carry. That's phenomenal.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And then in the wide receiver core, we had Christian Kirk had 12 targets, 6 receptions for 117 yards. He was clearly the guy. He's clearly the guy in this offense. The next targeted wide receiver, Marvin Jones Jr., he had 6 targets, 4 receptions for 38 yards. Zay Jones, yeah, you're absolutely right. I missed him. Zay Jones had 9 targets, 6 receptions for no touchdowns. Are you guys a little more interested after seeing Christian Kirk this week? I know he's been.
He's trying to get 12 targets a game. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, give me that all day long. And Trevor Lawrence did not look great today. Yeah, he made some plays, but like he said, that every time I I turned on this game, it felt like Trevor Lawrence was overthrowing somebody, or it wasn't that pretty. I didn't watch the whole game, so I can't speak to it completely. But I mean, he obviously locked on to Christian Kirk. They paid him a lot of money. If he's going to be that guy, volume is king in fantasy football, and right now Christian Kirk's getting it. So absolutely, I think he's locked in as wide receiver 2 status.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mentioned this morning, I was kind of interested to see what was going to happen with Zay Jones, and I'm going to be adding him this week in some leagues. I liked what I saw to Zay Jones if he's going to get used that way.
Before we move on to our next game, I saw a question here from Ishan, wanted to know Godwin or Heidi. And then clarified, Judy. Godwin or Judy. So are you starting Chris Godwin tonight, knowing that he's going to play? He's going to play. Or are you starting Jerry Jeudy? It's Judy for me. Well, I'm waiting for you guys. Chris Godwin, I want to see him. I want to see him healthy and on the field. Now, that could blow up in your face. Chris Godwin's the kind of guy who could just go out there and have a monster performance. We just saw Michael Thomas do it on limited snaps for the New Orleans Saints, right? There's no reason Chris Godwin can't do that as well in what should be a high-scoring game. But you got to take Jerry Jeudy whenever you don't know how involved Chris Godwin's going to be.
I agree.
Yep.
One of my favorite statements that I've been keep saying is, I like the situation you're in. I like the choice you have here, like Godwin or Jeudy. I think you're going to end up good either way, but I would go Jeudy.
The Steelers ended up pulling this game out in overtime, 23-20.
Neither team wanted to win this game. This was intense. It was, for the band kickers movement, this was a perfect game to watch. Joe Burrow did, and I'll say, yes, he had 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions, gave up a fumble, but you have to be encouraged that he was able to have the type of fantasy day he did after having 5 turnovers.
4 interceptions.
4 interceptions. And some of those were bad. Some of them were ugly, but there was others too that went through the hands of receivers and stuff like that. It was an ugly day, especially the first half of the game for the Cincinnati Bengals. It was a solid yet unspectacular day on the ground for Joe Mixon. Gotta love the 27 carries. He had 82 yards. Did not get a touchdown, though. What was extremely encouraging to see was his usage in the passing game. Everybody said, Joe Mixon isn't going to see the targets. Well, he had 9 targets, 7 catches, 63 yards. JL, I'm going to throw it to you first. If Mixon continues to be involved in the passing game, where do you see him finishing as in the running back ranks?
Oh, freaking sky's the limit for Joe Mixon. 27 attempts, 82 yards, and then you throw in some receiving work. That's beautiful. That's exactly what you want to see, especially any sort of PPR, half PPR formats. That's going to be huge. If they're able to continually use him this way, and he can stay healthy, this is going to be a great season for Joe Mixon again.
Think he can finish as the RB1 overall?
I think he absolutely has that within his realm of possibilities. Range of possibilities.
Yeah, this is the numbers that makes that possible. Like 100%. I'm with you, JL. He could.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was, and the uses last year with Joe Mixon wasn't awful. He did get used some in the passing game. So that was one of my favorite things about him this year. If they just bumped him up a little bit, like you said, the sky's the limit. T. Higgins got knocked out early with a concussion. Jamar Chase had a very Jamar Chase game, 10 receptions, 129 yards, and the game-tying touchdown with 2 seconds left. Not really much more to say about the Bengals. We'll hop over to the Steelers side of things. Trubisky looked like Mitch Trubisky. It was pretty ugly. He'd make, pretty decent play. That he'd make an ugly play, just like Mitch Trubisky likes to do. Didn't break the 200-yard threshold. He did have 1 passing touchdown to Najee Harris. So it was just a little dump off. Najee Harris left this game. As of me writing these notes, they did not designate what the injury was. I heard that he did leave the stadium in a boot, and the talk so far is a high ankle sprain, which will have him out for, if that is the case, a couple of weeks and could linger for the entire season. What's your interest level in who the backup, Jaylen Warren? And Joey, we'll start with you.
I mean, if Najee's not playing there in Pittsburgh, I might just be staying away from anyone. I might be trying to get rid of my Steelers players, to be honest with you. Other than Freiermuth, all of them. Yep. Maybe not Pickens in Dynasty or Deontay. But
just clear out the whole team. Don't need them.
Let's get them out of here. Throw them out with
get Pickett in there. Let's see what we got. No. I mean, he's a body, but I'm not that interested in Jaylen Warren.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
The only thing that provides hesitation is we've seen time and time again how the Steelers offense likes to use their running back. And when someone goes down, they just take the next guy up, plug him in, and give him all the carries. Like, I know today was a slightly weirder game. We had the quarterbacks a little bit more involved. Chase Claypool involved in the rushing game as well. But I have to believe that whoever that backup guy is going to get the work. Like that's just how the Steelers have operated for as long as I can remember watching them. Now, this is a bad offensive line, but
very bad.
I'm taking a shot on picking up that guy, whoever the next guy is.
Yeah, a bad offensive line. And right now, it's, even though they scored 23 points, it's a bad offense with Mitch Trubisky under center. I agree with you, Simon, what you said. Volume is king in fantasy, but that was with Ben Roethlisberger in his prime. That's the type of offense you were getting when you had, James Conner come in and have that monster season, when you had D'Angelo Williams come in and do the same thing in replacement. Yeah. So while I agree, I think he's somebody that you do have to pick up. I would not break the bank. No. I wouldn't use a ton of fab. I wouldn't use a high waiver priority. I'd throw a couple bucks and see if you're able to snag them. And let's see, for the pass catchers, Freiermuth was getting a lot of looks. I think he's somebody that you have to be interested in, you have to be happy while Mitch Trubisky is under center. Granted, 5 catches, 75 yards, not too bad. Chase Claypool, you got to love the carries that he had out of the backfield. 6 for 36. Maybe he gets some more after that. With
started
with
him in Scott Fishbowl today.
There you go. With Najee getting hurt, maybe he gets some more usage. Chase Claypool, somebody I was banging the drum for all offseason simply because of the price. You could get him at the end of drafts. Some places I saw him go literally in the last round. I think he's somebody you should keep your eye on. Deontay Johnson, even though he didn't have a great game, 12 targets, 7 catches, almost had a touchdown. I think he's somebody think he's perfectly fine the rest of the season, especially as Mitch Trubisky gets comfortable and Kenny Pickett comes along.
Yeah.
Sunday Night Football has started. I know everybody wants to go watch the Bucs-Cowboys game right now, so we're going to let you guys go. Before we go, one more stat from week 1. I think it's the most important stat. I just want to project a stat line forward for you guys, okay?
Okay.
O.J. Howard of the Texans is currently on pace for 34 targets, 34 receptions, and 34 touchdowns. Do with that what you will.
You will.
Do with that what you will. And I see CP the Goldfish. What's up, Goldfish? Uh-oh, they're going to forget this in 3 seconds, even if they answer right here. Did you guys talk about Antonio Gibson and JD on Washington? Gibson got a lot of passes. That seems encouraging. Jay, are you encouraged by Gibson seeing that passing downs work?
You have to, especially with, all the talk about Brian Robinson this offseason and then the unfortunate incident with him. It really kind of gave Antonio Gibson another shot of returning the value. If he continues to get this passing work, now it does sound like Brian Robinson is going to be able to return earlier than many people anticipated, but you have to be excited for what Antonio Gibson did today, especially where you were able to get him in drafts later in the summer.
Yeah.
One last thing before we go, guys. We're going to pick winners of this game tonight. So Cowboys, Buccaneers. Joey, who you got?
I can't pick against the Bucs. I'm taking the Buccaneers.
JL?
That's my team.
I will also go Buccaneers. I have concerns about the Cowboys.
Jay?
You know what? Give me the Cowboys.
Thank God you did it, or I was going to do it just to be different from you guys. Give me the
Buccaneers. That's why I did it.
Yeah, fire the cannons.
Yep, this is going to be animal noise bet, right? Whoever loses has to do an animal noise next week.
Exactly.
So
either 3 of us will be doing animal noises, or Jay will be doing his best animal noise. So make sure you guys come back here next week at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Bring your fantasy questions from throughout the day and break down those days' games with us. And then this Thursday at 5 to 6 p.m., we are live right back here on FanDuel's YouTube channel, playing games at the Front Yard Fantasy Hour. So come hang out with us then. Until then, though, we are out of here. Enjoy your Sunday Night Football. Happy week 1, everyone. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.